Welcome back. I'm absolutely honoured to be joined by three-time Grand Slam winner and 64 England cap holder and Halifax's, I think we're claiming of his own because of the time he spent here in childhood, Brian Moore. Thanks for joining us, Brian.
No, pleased to be here. I was here from 4 months old, so
okay. So that's
not technically. I know it means a lot to Yorkshire people. It was from 4 months old. So
I think the fact you're on this, you've now dropped that Comarina status, so that's okay. Yeah. So thanks for joining us. I think actually I was having a quick read. I think like me with the lockdown, you're kind of in a house dominated by girls. Is that right?
Wife, obviously female, and 4 girls. Yeah, 18, 12, and 2 nearly 4-year-old twins. So yeah, it's challenging sometimes.
Yeah. So you're managing to do a bit of the homeschooling with the younger ones, or
I've done little bits and pieces. Yeah. I've got a list of chores as long as I've painted. It's like the 4th bridge I've started. And it's nearly time to start again. I've done all the outside and the masonry, and and I'm not a person who does DIY. Not because I can't do it, I just don't like doing it. But I found myself tasked, and so I've got through it actually.
Yeah, good. I know you've been here early doors, 4 months old from Halifax, and I think if we're right, I think Crocs, All Crocs was your club in Halifax.
It was, yeah, because I went to Crossley and Porter, as it was. It's Crossley Heath now, but it was Crossley and Porter then. Went to Whitehill Junior School because I lived in Illingworth.
Yeah,
and continued to live there till I left for university when I was 18. Obviously, went to Nottingham.
Brilliant. Well, I could trade stories at Whitehill, which was my primary school, but I think we'll kind of pass on. I think people are interested in the rugby side. Any particular memories of those early days at Crocs? Opponents, teammates?
Well, funnily enough, I played for Halifax Colts before that, when I was 14. Because I always played above the age group I was in, because I was a decent player. And it was Jerome Murphy, who was the hooker at Halifax then. I was in the second team, and it came down to me or him, and I was a young lad. I was only 17, and they wouldn't put me in the first team. I understand why they wouldn't put me in the first team, because he was a good hooker. So I said, well, I'll go to the old boys, because I was at Crossley Port School anyway, and I used to play in the centre and captain the school in the morning. On Saturday mornings, I used to play hooker for the old boys in the merit table in the afternoon, which is not permitted now on 2 grounds safety, and also, you're not allowed to play 2 games in a day, and you're not allowed to play underage against fully grown men. But then I was doing the 2 games, and that year, I mean, we won the merit table that year. We didn't lose a game, and Brian Campsell became a referee. He was a teacher at Cleckheaton, who, by the way, sent me off at an under-14 basketball game. I never remember that. And he came along. Neil Dunnett came from Morley as well. It was a really good team. It was a very good team, and we won the merit table. But we were playing against sides like Selby, who then had mining teams, because the mines were still open, Castleford. And there was some Bramley, there were some hard games. I remember we got into a mass brawl in one of the games, and the captain of the other side came over and said, Can you stop your hooker, picking on ours, because our hooker's only 18. And they said, well, ours is only 17. So I was a bit mad in those days. I was a bit mad.
So do you think that reputation carried forward a little bit then through the years? Has there been
maybe it did. I mean, you have to tone it down, because I would have, I either would have hurt someone badly, or I was lucky I didn't get filled in, to be honest, because I certainly deserved to be. But the thing is, you have to temper that, because if you don't control your aggression, it's actually harmful. It doesn't help the team either. And so I had to do that. And funnily enough, the higher up you get, the more control you have to have, because there's a lot to lose. And when I played club rugby after I'd got capped, everyone would have a go at me, because I was the England hooker, obviously, and they wanted to have a go. But I had to think each time, if I react to this in a way that's stupid, and I get sent off and I get banned, then this is my England career, and someone else gets a chance. So you have to learn to use some control, and you have to wait to get your revenge. But in those days, see, I played in a career which spanned from uh, law changes where initially the referee was on his own. Even touch judges couldn't signal for foul play. So all you had to do was wait until the referee turned his back, and it all went off. So you developed a healthy regard for being able to run quickly but look behind your shoulder at all times. And then of course it changed so touch judges could come on, and then of course it changed so you had more cameras there and etc. etc. So I went through the whole thing. But and of course in those days in rugby union, rucking was allowed. Yeah. And rucking was a time where you'd always be at the bottom sometime. That's why you didn't like to gob off too much, because if you did, you'd be found at the bottom at some point. Yeah. So why make things worse for yourself?
Yeah. We had a lot of the rugby league guys on from the 70s, 80s and 90s this weekend, and they were talking about the difference in the games, and particularly around scrums in their side. I noticed, I think this week you were talking maybe in the Telegraph about potentially scrapping conversions and maybe changing the point structure for the games.
Well, look, I'm just trying to rugby union it has changed from my day a lot. The principles of the game haven't changed at all. How you do it has. In every area, the game has improved since when I played, apart from two areas: the scrums and the breakdown. Everything else is much better, much cleaner, and so on. But they've still got a problem. And my fear is this with the scrum. And I remember rugby league when it used to be competitive in scrums.
Yeah.
When the hookers used to almost lie on the floor, and challenge. And they got rid of that in the end. It was allegedly on safety grounds, but it was a mess. And now, obviously, it is what it is. And because of that, if you are 15 stone, 16 stone, and you're 6 foot, 6'1", you can probably play anywhere in league. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's not required. You don't have the differentiation. Because there's no pushing. You don't require big props. You don't require tall second rows. And Union has always had that. And it's always been a differentiation. And if why would we want to play a poor version of rugby league when rugby league is available and it's a very good game? Yeah. What's the point? You might have a different game, and some people like it, some people won't. I've played both, I like both, but there is that differentiation. I'm just afraid that if the scrums go wrong again in Union, and you've got to remember, it's not only that they don't complete all the time and the ball's not putting straight, they're boring. It takes ages to set them. It takes ages to get through them. And I say to referees, you want to sit in the stand like I do sometimes, not actually involved in the game, just as watching as a spectator. And I tell you what, everyone around you is utterly bored. You're okay because you're concentrating on something. You think something's going on. When I'm working on TV, I have to say why this is happening. I have to give insight into this. So, that minute and a half doesn't seem anything to me when you're sat there with nothing to do. And I'm sure some of the backs who played both league and union have said, waiting for the ball to come out, literally doing nothing for a minute and a half. It's just a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think speeding that game up is on everybody's lips, isn't it, really? Well, once we get back on the field anyway.
Yeah.
Obviously, big news. I think the re-election of Bill Beaumont this weekend or this week was it chairman? I think a World
Rugby chairman. Yeah.
Yeah. If he was to call you up and say, Brian, what should I be doing once we're back out there for the good of the game? What sort of advice would you be giving him?
Well, I'd be saying, take the formation of the scrums away from referees. Let players go down, put the ball in straight. He has a lot of benefits. Referee the offside line much more strictly. And you see, it's funny because in the lockdown, lots of people have been watching old videos, and they've been saying, "Oh, the game was faster when you played." I said, "No, it wasn't. Nowhere near." But what it was, you didn't get the rhythm that you've got now in rugby union, which is almost a bit going towards American football. You have frenzied activity followed by a period of rest while people walk to lineouts, walk to scrums, have a chat, as an injury or whatever. Whereas, in old rugby union and league, the restarts are quick. So, I actually think at full tilt, when union is played well and the offloads are going and the rucks are going quickly, it's probably a quicker game than league. But you just don't have the interminable, stoppages in league where you're waiting for people to form up. You're waiting because people can form lineouts quickly. They just don't because they're not forced to. And if you're there as a league supporter, you must think, God, why aren't they making them do this quickly? And I always say to Bill Beaumont, have a clock like in American football. If you don't get the snap away in 30 seconds, you have a 5-yard penalty. Yeah. So do that. You have a 10-yard penalty. You'll go back 10 yards or you lose the throw. I tell you what, you'd soon find out how quick they could do it then because they can. Because they all know they can. They just don't because they don't have to.
Yeah, good. Any other rule changes you'd be advocating in the modern game?
No, you've got to be very careful with rule changes because the law of unintended consequences. You think, and this is where lawmakers in the past have got it wrong because they've not been ex-players. Players don't and coaches don't go in and say, "Oh, this is a new law. This is what it's supposed to do. Let's do that." They say, "No, right. How can we bend this to our advantage? How can we get round it? How can we do something that's on the margins that other people won't know?" So, if you start drafting laws from thinking on that perspective, you probably get them better because that's what's going to happen. And even then, when you've got a committee of 4 or 5 people, you aren't going to think of everything that the whole world of rugby, professional rugby, is going to think of. I remember when the 40-20 came in league, it was a massive rage for all the time. And then, it calmed down a bit because people understood what it was for, how you could use it. But, and the same with the 50-20 they're trying to do in union. For a while, it'll be an absolute rage, and then it'll calm down because people find ways to accommodate it and so on. But there's not too much wrong. If you close down those long delays which are unnecessary, the game would flow much more in rugby union, and it would be a much better spectator sport when it's actually being played. When the rucks are there, when the offsides are, and the ball's being produced quickly, and the players are skillful and fast, then there's not much wrong with it. It's a different game to league, which is good from both points of views. But it's those bits what I would say to Beaumont. These are things which you can do easily, and you should do.
Yeah. I know you've still got ties to Halifax. I think you're a patron at Peace Hall,
yes.
And I'm sure you're involved in other charities. What's the call been on your time and other players' time whilst you've been in lockdown? Because I've seen a lot of messages.
You can only the biggest difficulty is my mum who was 92 last Sunday. She lives in Amberthorne, Queensbury, and I wasn't able to get to see her. You see,
yeah. So,
but one of the impressive things about my mum is no matter how old she's got, she's not a technophobe. She's got she can use Skype, she can use Zoom and all these things, and she just goes on there. And so we could see it, which was nice.
Yeah.
So we have that tie. My sister, one of my sisters still lives in Brighouse, one lives in Knaresborough. So yeah, we've got those ties. I don't get up as often as I'd like to Halifax because, well, you'll know what it's like. If you've got young kids, it's not easy, is it?
No.
And the other thing, when I was in Nottingham, you could get there and back on a Sunday in a day and have a decent time. You can't do that on, it takes a while to get from London to Halifax, whatever transport you use. Mind you, if someone had told me a long time ago you'd have a train service dedicated from Halifax to London, I would have told you were being stupid. Yeah. But Grand Central actually works when you're allowed to get on it, of course.
Yeah.
No, I've done what I can via things like this. Everyone wishes you could do more, don't you? But you just have to be sensible. I feel for Peace Hall because I met Nikki Chance Thompson, who's a lovely woman and very, very sharp, by accident at the Opera, would you believe, in London. And I told her, where I was from. She said, "Oh, I said I'll come and see you when I come up next time." And I went in and I became a patron that way. And because I remember, I don't know how old you are, but I remember distinctly in my childhood all the various plans for the Peace Hall. Was it going to be a hotel? Was it going to be a business site? Was it going to be a retail park? Yeah. And it got within one vote, I think, of being knocked down.
Yep.
And do you remember when the Japanese consortium were going to be a hotel? And the only reason I think that it didn't get knocked down was they couldn't agree what to put in its place. But by the time they'd realised what it was, the most magnificent building in Europe of its sort, unique. Then there were different plans for it, and it's interesting because I've done an article. It's not come out for the Old Crossleigh magazine, talking about the building itself. And what makes it unique and beautiful is actually one of the biggest drawbacks, because it's a Grade 1 listed building. You can't literally do anything to it without permission. So those little rooms, which were great for individual cloth manufacturers, when you want to put a bar in there, not as easy really. It's a long lateral thing.
Yeah.
But I was saying, who knows what trading and the way people are going to do business in the future, with the advent of lots of wireless stuff. Offices and stuff don't need to be as big. They don't need as many people. And one of the things I think the lockdown has shown, that you can do an awful lot from your front room, and ergo you can do an awful lot from a small unit.
Mm-hmm.
And therein, I hope, lies the Peace Hall's future. Because I understand why Halifax people like this. They're all really proud of it, but they don't want to pay for it. Because, they're saying it has to have a grant. Because I said, well, why don't you have a charge entrance fee? And Nicky said, people won't pay it. I said, well, visitors would. I said, yeah. Well, I said, what do you issue a pass? So that you say to people in Halifax, all right, it's cost you $5 a year. Just a $5. That'll make, there's 90,000 of you. So say what, 50,000. That's 250,000. Then they said, if you haven't got a pass and if you're a visitor, you could charge them £2 or £3. I said, when they see that she said, well, we'll have a think about it, but it's not as easy as you think. So, I mean, you must admit yourself, it's a magnificent building now.
Gorgeous. Yeah, we're huge fans, and I spent a lot of time with Nicky and Stephen and the team down there. And of course, it's a charity. It's not a for-profit entity, and it's enabling all those businesses that that independent, whether you call it Covent Garden or whatever it is of the north. It really is a great space. And I remember back in the kid being dragged almost through the cobbled stairs and the packed market traders. And yes, that's nice memories, but at the same time,
it was a bit down market, wasn't it? I mean, I'm not being too pejorative about this, but it was a bit scruffy and all that. And now they've got. I mean, but I was talking to Nicky and saying, there are 4 toilets for the whole 4 units for the whole of the piece off. So how you get to do that? And it's interesting, because I was reading comments about this saying, oh, I hate the new paving, it's berry cobbles. I said, no, it's not. No, it really isn't. No. It really, really isn't. Not quite apart from the fact you couldn't put anything in it because it went like this everywhere.
Big slope.
I'm coming up hopefully for the Mannix gig.
Oh, good.
Because I know the Mannix quite well, the James Bradfield and Nicky Wire, who are both, by the way, massive rugby fans.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
They toured Australia and New Zealand the years that the Lions were touring, just so it just paid the way so they could go on tour, which is fantastic. So they're up there. I'd like to see the Kaiser Chiefs as well, because they're a good Leeds band, aren't they?
Yeah.
I saw them down at the Emirates when they were on with Green Day. Yeah. So I mean, that sort of stuff. If you'd said you'd get that in the old days, you'd be laughed out of the ground. But now, I think it's a jewel. The other thing for Halifax is I've always felt, with the rugby league and with the Shea, it's a pity one of them, they haven't got the league status back or Super League status back. So I think that would be a big fillip, wouldn't it? Big shot in the arm for them.
Yeah, no, I think the days of, it's easy to wax lyrical about Thrum Hall and the packed gates and 8, 10,000, 15,000, all that. I think we're something like the 56th anniversary or something of 104,000 at Odsal, for Halifax. I mean, those days, a fraction of those back in, it's very, very positive for the town. If we do that, and of course, I think the football played Bradford couple of years back and filled the place. So there's definitely demand, but of course it needs a success with it to drive people
Well, you've got to remember about Thrumall as well. It was dangerous for Thrumall. Do you remember how close those concrete barriers were without safety, padding?
Yeah.
And the 12-foot slope. I mean, nowadays they won't play, would they? They won't be allowed. They wouldn't be allowed to do that.
No. The different times.
But I remember watching. I went to Wembley twice. I remember, and both times they lost. And the time they won, I didn't actually go. But I remember it was I was allowed on the coach actually. Coming back, I went to the dinner. Unfortunately, it was a losing dinner in the evening. It was a great honour actually. Seamus McCallion, I think, was the hooker then.
Fan favourite.
Because obviously the time of Graham Eady and Chris Anderson and so on. But I mean, my memory's good. But I actually saw Halifax beat both Manchester United and Manchester City.
So
Man United 2-1 in the Watney Cup when Bill Atkins scored and Alex Smith saved a Willie Morgan penalty. And when Paul Hendry put the ball in at the Skirkett bus end of the old Shea against Manchester City, when Malcolm Allison was manager. And you remember they were hypnotised by Romark before they played the game. And I said, well, this is work. Why don't you hypnotise them every week? If you think about it. But no, so I saw probably the two greatest triumphs of all. I wasn't there for the Tottenham one, the biggest crowd, wasn't it? The Tottenham one. But I do remember my first visit to see the Dukes, actually. And saying, why aren't people standing at the end there? He said, no, you don't stand there. I said, well, I'll go there. There's no one there. And then the first corner, all the shale came up and got sprayed. I thought, oh, this is why people don't stay there. So
you didn't need telling a second time. Yeah.
Right.
You didn't need telling a second time.
No, you don't need to tell a second time. Yeah. Do you remember? I mean, it's like this. You remember the old days? Those when they used to have those Westlers hamburgers and hot dogs. Those awful things that were stewed and boiled. Yeah. And boiled onions and that sort of smell, and that's the sort of old smell of of what it was like, wasn't it? Yeah. That sort of thing, and people could still smoke then, of course, and in grounds and Who was my favourite? Mickey Kennedy before I went to Huddersfield. Right, he was a good player.
Yeah.
Lammy Robertson, he was a striker, wasn't he? Atkins was a striker. Yes, because my uncle actually, Gladney Robinson, I think he played for Halifax just post-war. Was it 40s or 50s? I can't remember. He's died now, but he was a town player. I remember. Do you remember the year when he just missed out on promotion to go into what would be in the second division?
Yeah.
Was it only one went up or two? I can't remember. Was it two or? They missed out because they were whatever it was. They were in the one below it, and then of course they slid from there. Unfortunately, but they were on the way up. Try to remember who was manager then. Can't remember.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have lots of comments below the video kind of telling us who they are. Well, it's really funny because obviously there's a lot of memories going back here and we've been very lucky. I think the junior setups and certainly the girls teams at the moment in a lot of the sports have been thriving up until this point. What do you think the impact? I mean, there's a lot of talk about the Rugby League 16 million loans and the 200 million black holes at the top. What do you think is going to happen at the junior and the girls level maybe?
Well, the unfortunate thing is, people. I've been arguing about this because I'm right, by the way, with Rugby Union people. I'm saying, look, I'm not saying this because it's right on and it's PC and it's the right thing to do socially, but it is. So that's a reason enough. But it's economically in your interest to do this because you think about this. I keep being told that mini rugby, and I presume the same is in league, makes more money sometimes if you've got a big mini section than you do on Saturdays over the bar because the margin is so small with beer and people don't drink all night anymore because they've got all sorts of other things to do. If you've got a big mini section, the markup on soft drinks and hamburgers and breakfast, it makes you more money. I said, with league and union, you have got as many boys playing mini rugby on a Sunday, Saturday morning as you'll ever get. Because you've got to remember this. Every other sport is trying to get boys and girls to play their game, including football, which has much more money than anything else, is ubiquitous. the rewards in football are huge if you're a star. So there's a natural draw. I said, what? I said, you could have a development budget of a 10, 15 million pounds per annum, and you'd still make a fractional dent in this, because football has got even more money and it's got the natural draw. Football's taken a bit of an advantage because of the women's football, but it's nowhere near the same as the differentiation in football. It's nowhere near as all pervasive. You match every boy on your Sunday morning with a girl, that's double the profits.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it's double the parents, and you know as well as I do, parents are the lifeblood of junior clubs, and because they're amateurs, because they volunteer, who knows who they know when it comes to planning, when it comes to building, when it comes to selling your facilities for other things, double the contacts. I know this because I have a job which is all over the place. So sometimes I take the kids to school. Not many dads do. But I've witnessed the conversations at the gate the mothers have. And what do you think they talk about? Everything. And, if you've got moms or who've got of girls or who actually played themselves, they can tell people, no, when you hear all these stories about concussion and it's dangerous, no, it's not. I play. My little daughter plays. And if you don't think mothers have a big say in nearly everything that goes on with their family, then you're stupid, actually. So what they're likely to play when they grow up, male and female. So in the short term, economically, and the medium term, it just makes sense to do that. And also, it's the right thing to do as well. But if you think about it, one of the things with union, and the same bit with league, is body image with girls is a bigger thing even than boys, much bigger at school. In rugby, you can have girls who aren't traditional beach body Barbie type celebrity whatever it is. You can have girls who are athletic and powerful, or a bit chunkier or bigger, for want of a very clumsy phrase, and they will be able to play, and they will be as good as anything, because sometimes these games reward a bit of power. These are not girls who need to be who are dexterous necessarily. That's what you have to have in netball, the traditional girls' sports, where and even in football, you have to be able to use your feet. You can't just use power. In fact, you no use at all if you're not good with your feet. Whereas in both codes of rugby, if you're a powerful runner and you can tackle, you will play a big part. So I think, for that reason, if clubs are tempted to do this, should think very carefully before cutting that. And as soon as things get better again, my strong advice to them, for their own good, for their own economic good, and is to invest in this, because the Crosslands didn't used to have any mini rugby, and then they had an agreement with King's Cross. It didn't quite work. Now they've got it back. They've got a thriving mini section. They've got 13s, 15s, 18s. They haven't got a women's team. Halifax Rugby Union have got 30, 50 and a women's team. And I know Tim Greenwood very well. I know Howard Cooper very well. And both of them say to me, it's transformed the club in a positive way. Things have changed. And I know if you have old guys who say, I've been coming to this club for 40 odd years. And you had a good time for 40 odd years as well. And you made lots of friends. So actually, you're going to die soon. We want the best in the world. And you don't spend as much money because you stand in the corner moaning about, I said, and actually, sorry, you've had your bit with the club. Thank you very much. But the future is different. Yeah. And the future is going to be different. And it's going to involve women. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry, you're out. You've got, the club is not going to go that way, because times have changed. And it behoves me to say, I'm nearly 60 now, but, I understand this. And it will be better for it.
Yeah, good. No, I think that's a positive message to send, that people think, obviously in business, it's probably the equivalent of marketing gets cut sometimes, and actually they need to be being sensible but powering forward with.
Well, let me just tell you this story. The lad who sat next to me at school from the age of 11, Tim Crow, used to live in Savile Park. He is one if not the top sponsorship expert in this country.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the top 10 in the world, without doubt. He's retired now because he's made so much money. But we have lots of chats. He's one of my best friends, and he's godfather to one of my twins. And he is saying to me that women's sport is the area where people wanted to put money in sponsorship wise. He said, but also the more interesting thing for me is even in areas like cars, where all men think that they get the car they want. The traditional wisdom is that the man is the one thing he gets his way on is the car. Not true at all.
No.
Not true at all. Nearly 75% of all spending decisions are made by women. Every single household decision are made by women because they have to shop more often, and you'll know. I mean, it's a path of least resistance sometimes, isn't it? Where you say, all right, I'll compromise. And so when you're talking about the future and who holds what for your club, just remember this is the power, the indirect power of having women involved. Not just because it's a nice thing to do, which it is, and it's normal, which it is, and it's politically correct, which it should be, but actually it's economically worth your while. That's the point.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good point. I think I was at JGB Sports at their e-commerce 10 years ago, and we quickly realised that all the men's T-shirts and socks and kids' clothes, they were all bought by women.
Absolutely.
That was where the decision came from.
80% of wine is bought by women.
Now, that's interesting you should say that, because that was to wrap up, and I appreciate your time, is I'd noticed that obviously you've mentioned the culture, you've mentioned the opera, the travelling around, but I'd noticed that you'd seem to have a soft spot for the wine industry.
Well, actually, I did a wine column for the Today newspaper and for the Sun actually for several years, which is all right because it didn't involve phone hacking, so that's all right. And I was one of the most popular men in my road, because I had so much wine, I had to give it away. No, it was. I mean, it was a stroke of pure luck. This is just how timing plays in all life, because I happened to be sat at a lunch next to the editor of the Today newspaper. I used to edit the Mirror, and I just said, the wine is better than they usually serve at these dues. And he said it should be because I've just bought it specially. He said, what would you know about wine coming from Halifax? And I just said, well, I'm nothing. I said, I'm just an enthusiastic amateur. And then we went to South Africa, and Tony Roach, who was the rugby correspondent, he said, you'll never guess what's happened. I said, what? He said, well, like a lot of other newspapers, he said, we're going to launch a weekend section. You remember all the magazines came out? He said, we're going to have to because everyone else is doing it. And they want to do a wine column, but they said they don't want to have it in a highfalutin master of wine type way. They want to, an enthusiastic amateur. So they said, would you do it? And I said to him, I swore, I said, off. He said, you're going to have to get up a lot earlier than that to catch me, because, everyone played practical jokes. And in the end, they had to actually get them to write on headed paper and fax it to me. And so I did it. And it was great. I just used to say what I was going to write. People sent me stuff. And actually through that, I get to learn a lot about wine. And a couple of my best friends are now masters of wine. So I do know a lot. I do know enough about it now. Not nowhere near someone who's involved in the wine trade full time. But yeah, I mean, Tim and I actually are going to launch a site giving recommendations and doing wine tastings online, because it's become quite apparent, during the lockdown, just how much you can do over screen to screen. So let's see how that will go. But it's not a bad hobby, is it, really?
No. And if for people watching at home this weekend, any top tips for maybe a red and a white just to sign off with?
Oh, I tell you what, if you want a white, there's a Clare Valley Riesling, 2000, exquisite from Maldi, 2018. I think it's about £7. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Fantastic.
Bone dry, because a lot of people think Riesling, it's sweet. It's not. This is bone dry. It's lovely. As a red, I tell you, as a red, the Casillero del Diablo range, their Merlot, their Shiraz, their Malbecs, they're pretty well made. they're pretty good value. You know, they're about £7 now. I understand, I'm not being blasé about that. To some people, that's too expensive. But if you just spend a couple of quid more, the difference in quality is huge. And as a brand, that's a pretty good brand to click off on.
Brilliant. Well, I don't think people were probably expecting that at the beginning of the interview, but I appreciate that. And obviously, keep checking out Brian on I think your prolific tweeter. I think, is that your social media of choice?
It is. If you don't like swearing, don't come.
Okay, kids, don't follow the Twitter, but maybe the parents can have a look at that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the
It's been great. Listen, a great initiative. Let's hope it succeeds as well as it can do. Let's hope that you and the town sport thrives. Let's hope the peace all comes through this. And I just say to the people watching, you know, sometimes value for money is not cheapest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes you have to pay a little bit for things, and if you want to keep them nice. And Halifax Town Centre has improved out of all recognition since I was there, and it'd be a shame for it to go downhill for lack of appreciation, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian.
Take care.